How does it feel to play the character that everyone loves to hate?
Honestly, I love it. At first, people were like, "Oh, it's like, is that hard?" But I don't know. When you're an actor, just making people have a reaction, like that's your job. I don't need anyone to like me. I just want people to feel something viscerally, and clearly they do. Because people got a lot of opinions. And I think it's fun. I think it's fun to see like the discourse of all the differing opinions about her and about like her and Langdon and everything. It's been very cool to see everyone's like differing opinions, and also when that whole arc happened, um, seeing people kind of go through that, and then at the end of it realize like, oh, maybe I had some internalized biases that were a little misguided, and um, so yeah, it was I think a very like well written arc, and I've been really, I don't know, just grateful to be able to play someone who's so complex and is like polarizing in that way.
You posted on Instagram after episode 10 about
Yeah.
the discourse
Yeah.
around that. And yeah, like the internalized misogyny, like you said. And, it's just about believing the charming man over the
And
more complicated woman who's new.
obviously she hasn't been great. She's
Yeah.
she's done some not great things, but if you really look at it, like the two of them are quite similar. They
Mhm.
do kind of go about things in very similar ways sometimes, but it's just received differently when it's coming from the like charming, handsome man and then the like go-getter, fresh-faced woman.
They were both right and wrong in different situations,
Yeah.
right?
Like, oh, clear, morally right way to go about it. Like everything. I mean, and yeah, it's good writing because that's just how life is. Like, when is there ever a really black and white view of anything?
Well, I talked to Patrick and I was like, I feel like Landon sees a bit of himself in her. And he was like, I think that's true, but I don't know if Langdon sees it that way. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Totally.
Because I feel like when on his first date, he was probably brash like her too, like hot stuff.
I think the reason they clash so much is because they're so similar, but they don't see it. They're like, no, I'm nothing like that person.
I'm curious, do you think Santos would have reported him had he been just, a tad nicer to her? Or was she more thinking about like jeopardizing patient care?
I think she would have either way. Because I do think, I mean, I think his treatment of her definitely threw up some red flags, of course. But I do think that she seems like the right type of person that is not going to just like sweep something under the rug because she likes them. Like I think they're contrary to maybe what some people believe. I think there is still very much a moral compass in there. She can of course be like mean to people for fun, and that's not morally that good, but like when it comes to right and wrong and putting people in danger, I think that's pretty, she has a firm stance on that.
I do like how you played like the aftermath of that, like when it like you were clearly, feeling complicated about the whole situation still.
At the end of the day, he is a respected person in the ED, and this is her first day. So no matter what, even though she was right, she still knows the world that she lives in and knows that, like, I mean, the conversation she has with Garcia, where she's like, I don't want to hear about this. Even if it is true, she's like, I don't want any part of it. She knows that, like, there's a lot of complicated feelings around it. So just being right is not something to like celebrate. It's actually going to still be very complicated for her because there are still going to be people who are like, you should have kept your mouth shut. And I think that's unfortunately a very universal theme for a lot of things, and especially for women. She has a complicated aftermath with that, and I'm interested to see how that plays out in the future in season 2. Like, now that we know he is coming back, like what that dynamic is now going to be.
I know that the backstory you were given for Santos was that she is a former athlete. And when I found that out, I was like, that makes so much sense. Like, it explains why she is so guarded and uses sarcasm as a defense mechanism. So how did that inform how you played her?
They were like, we were thinking maybe a former gymnast, but it's up to you if you want to, like, but I was like, oh, gymnast makes so much sense. And yeah, and we talked about like a lot of her trauma kind of stemming from that part of her life. And a big part of why she pivoted so hard to, now I'm going to focus on medicine. I'm going to focus on something else that I can try to be the best at. But yeah, you definitely see it in how she interacts with her colleagues, because she's like, I'm not here to make friends, because clearly she's been in environments before where that is not the goal. It's to be the best.
But also her being a former gymnast aligns with, what happens in episode 7 when she threatens the patient who's been sexually abusing his daughter. And you have that great intense monologue. And, she doesn't outright say it, but you can infer from it that that this happened to her too. So yeah. So how did you tackle that scene?
That was a big one, because I realized going into it, like, I didn't realize it before, but then I was talking to Noah and he was like, how do you feel? You've got the first big monologue of the show. And I was like, oh, I didn't think about it that way before. Thanks for that. But so it did feel kind of daunting, but it was also, it's a very sensitive topic, and unfortunately something that a lot of people can connect to and have been through. And I think something that was challenging about it is, even though it is like a traumatic thing that could make you really break down and cry, I was like, oh, this can't be a moment of like sadness and like breaking down. This is a moment of, in this moment, I am taking back power and needing that in that moment. And I'm not going to actually like give you the satisfaction that I'm going to cry. I'm actually really strong in this moment, even if obviously it was unprofessional and it was not the right setting to do that in. But as like a character thing as an actor, it was a really complicated scene to play, because me personally, I might be like, oh, I'm like wanting that release of like wanting to cry or scream, but actually right now I need to hold all that power right inside in this moment and then leave it. And that, I think, as we would talk to a lot of the doctors and nurses that helped us on the show, they have addressed that, where it's like, yeah, of course this job affects you. Of course you're going to feel a lot of emotions, but you also are the person that someone is looking to for stability in that moment. So you have to kind of keep it under a lid for a certain time. And of course that lid eventually explodes. But I thought that was a really like cool moment to play with how working in that environment is going to affect you, because every healthcare professional is still a human being at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure. And you had a bookend scene in the finale with Max too, when she's even more vulnerable there, to she's telling him about her friend who took her own life.
I thought it was a kind of great way to bring it back around and also see the growth from episode 7 to that point. Even though it's one day, it's like you're also seeing in every character, like, they're tired. They've gone through a whole day of carnage, and seeing the toll that has taken on every single person. And you also get to see that, like, she's not just a hardened, like, mean person. There's clearly a heart there, and this is something she has grappled with herself. And in a moment when someone really needs her, and she also sees herself in this kid, like, she's like, I need to help this kid. Like, she says, like, I'm going to stay, even though she probably really wants to go home. She's like, I'm going to stay and try to make sure this kid doesn't fall through the cracks, because that's what people did for her.
Yeah, we saw a bit of her, I guess, humanity, like even in 9 when she gave the win to Mohan, right? And then she let Langdon lay into her. But what do you think went behind that decision? Like, did she just know, like, he's going to yell at me anyway because we didn't call him in time?
I think she knows, like, might as well, like, why have someone else go through this? And I think she also senses, like, even though she can be very brash, like, she still can sense other people's emotions and sense when people are in need. And I think something that Dr. Mohan, Supriya's character, explores throughout the season is her own emotions and like how she's dealing with it. And I think she senses that she's in a sensitive place as well. And like, why let this girl get yelled at when, like, I'm going to get yelled at no matter what? And I think it's cool to see, even though we've seen so far very like, I'm going to be the best, I'm going to push people out of the way. there's still some sort of like camaraderie that she wants. She does yearn for it in a certain way. She just tends to push it down. But I think in that moment, you get to see a little bit of like, what if we just stick together for this moment?
Well, one of the funniest moments was in episode 6 when you dropped the scalpel in Garcia's foot. I rewound it like 4 times to watch it. How many takes did that take?
It didn't take too many, and it was a very fun one to do because I mean, obviously, like in the reality of it, it's a terrible reality. Like, oh my God, I would be freaking out if I dropped the scalpel into someone's foot, especially if it's someone I like. But it was a really fun thing to shoot because, you know, a lot of the subject matter is very heavy. So when we get those little moments of levity, we really kind of latch onto them because you need that throughout the day. Again, like that's another thing that the doctors and nurses that we've worked with have said, like, we need to laugh. We need to take the little moments to enjoy things because it's so much sadness around us. Like, you have to take care of yourself in that way. And I think we get to find those moments in the acting of it, of being like, oh, this is a moment where we can just like be a little absurd. Like, this is crazy. It's kind of the first moment you get to see her be taken down a peg and like start to really go inward instead of constantly fighting out.
Well, up until that point, the banter between Santos and Garcia is kind of flirty. Like, you know, Garcia asking her like, "What's your sign?"
Yeah.
Scorpio, which also makes sense.
Yeah. When I saw that in the script, I was like, yeah, I'm sure.
Definitely a Scorpio. But do you think Santos views it as flirty, or is she just kind of constantly just chasing, you know, approval from like higher ups and like being the best, you know?
I think there's definitely flirtation there because, I mean, she can sense it. And I think because she likes to get ahead, I think there's something of like, oh, someone is not put off by me. Someone is actually, because Garcia and Santos also have very similar temperaments and ways of going about things. So I think they kind of clock each other in that way of like, oh, we're two sides of the same coin. I think she sees an ally in that moment of like, oh, and this is a way that I can put in a chest tube. This is a way that I can like maybe scrub in for something, you know? So I think it's multifaceted, but there's definitely like a flirtation there because who doesn't love a little wink wink?
Well, how about her and Ellis? Because that's like her night shift.
Really responded to that. And we didn't like talk about that in the in filming or in the writing or anything, but people really, I was seeing that on like Twitter and Reddit. I was like, okay, well, I'm not in the writer's room, but hey, if they want to do something with that, that's all them.
Like, by the way, while you're writing season 2,
Yeah.
So when I started watching the show, like I thought it was so cool. Like, you know, they have Princess and Perla gossiping in Tagalog, and you know, knowing that you are also Filipino, I was like, oh, I wonder if Santos is also going to be Filipino. And eventually, it turned out yes.
Yeah.
And I love that scene when, you know, it's revealed that you understand them and you understood them this whole time, and they were shocked. So how did that scene come about? Did you discuss this with the writers about Santos being Filipino?
From the beginning, I was always hoping. I was like, oh, I kind of hope that it's addressed in some way, like that I get to interact with them a little bit. And yeah, I think it was probably around like us filming episode 5 or 6 that one of the writers, Simran, she came up to me during a one of the table reads, and she was like, we're playing with this idea, like, since you guys are all Filipino, like there might be something cool to do here. And I was like, yes, please, like, please. And yeah, she was like, well, how would you feel about like maybe saying something in Tagalog? Or she was like, do you speak it fluently? And I do not. I wish I did. But there are like things that I can understand, and I know like certain phrases and words. Obviously, like I'm half Filipino, so I'm gonna play this as if I am half Filipino. So she's probably been around it, isn't fluent, but has heard it and can understand things. And I was like, what if she can like just interject? And they're like surprised, and they were like, that's what we had in mind. And like, and so it was a really cool collaborative experience. And then when we were actually filming it, it was also exciting because our director was Q Tran, who is also an Asian woman, and it was just one of those moments where I was like looking around the room and I was like, this is, like this makes my heart really happy. to be in this room right now. And she kept asking us, she was like, is there anything more you want to say? Like, is there anything else? So the little end bit where Princess is like, she looks so white though. Like that wasn't in the script, but they were like, say that. And it's funny for me because she was like, is that okay if I say that? I was like, yes, because that's true. Like that's the exact experience I've had. And even though like sometimes that has been said to me in real life and it's hurt, or it's been a way of kind of erasing part of me, it felt really empowering to show it in the show, because it's like, oh, that's an experience I've had. And like someone else, some other mixed kid is going to watch that and be like, oh my God, that's so funny. I've had that exact experience. And even if it isn't the most joyful memory, it's there, that feeling of representation is still there. And there's something cathartic about that. And so that was like one of my favorite days on set. There's also like 4 Asian women just talking about like creating something. And it was really, really special.
Well, I love the end of the finale when Santos invites Whitaker to live with her.
Yeah.
And like, first of all, how big is her pad? Like, how does she have a spare room with its own bathrooms?
I know. I have questions. But no, I was really happy when we read that script and saw that that was that was where our characters were heading. Because I think, in the beginning, she's throwing nicknames at everyone and being kind of mean and poking fun. But to me, like from the beginning, and we actually talked about this in our character meeting, they were like, yeah, I think like she had to take care of her like younger brothers a lot. And I was like, that makes a lot of sense. Like
She's the only girl in the fam.
girl taking care of younger brothers. And I think the kind of relationship that she and Whitaker have is the way that you would like poke fun at your little brother and be kind of mean to your little brother. And it's cool to see that come full circle and show like, oh, she's actually like, he's her little brother. And she can be like, you suck. And also I'm going to take care of you. As you would with any sibling. And yeah, I think it's also nice to see that like caretaking energy come out in her.
Well, what else would you like to see in season 2? Like, how do you think she'll behave around Langdon when he returns?
No, I'm really excited to see how that's handled, because yeah, now that we know like Langdon is coming back, it's going to be like his first day back, I guess is what they've said. And I think that's going to be a really great opportunity for, I mean, some more drama, or also like maybe kind of turning over of a new leaf. Like, who knows? I think there's a lot of options there for what could happen for those two, and also for her and Whitaker, and just kind of seeing more of, I don't know, maybe seeing a little more of her heart coming through. I would like to see, or maybe she's closed off again. I don't know.
Well, that can happen in 10 months. Like, who knows?
Isn't linear. Maybe she's a bitch again. I don't know.
Well, lastly, I talked to Noah, and he kind of like half jokingly suggested like maybe we'll get your dad on next season. Fiona's dad was on this season.
I would love that. I think my dad needs to be like a surgeon who like comes down every once in a while.
You can gossip with Princess and Prola.
Yes, exactly. Just some chisme sessions. I would love it.